What is up? What is up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to Talk About It Tuesday review. This is what I'm gonna start doing on Tuesdays, you guys. Just like to switch things up here on Chop It Up with Chi. So I appreciate you so much. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff. I want to just dive right in pretty much because this is like a jaw-dropping story to me. I don't even watch. I've never watched this show, and the only Real Housewives show that I really have been just dragging, hanging on to the tip of is the Real Housewives of Potomac. But I'm just about done with them. I gave up the Real Housewives of Atlanta so long ago. I can't even remember how long ago. And so yeah, this franchise is just not one that obviously that I could relate with. So I never had a desire to watch the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So, but I'm like I said, I'm gonna dive right in because I will explain along the way why this is so shocking to me. And I mean, it's for obvious reasons, it's shocking to most, but not all. So, just to be official about the Talk About It Tuesday review, this is about the three-part series currently on TLC called The Cult of the Real Housewife about Mary Cosby, who was on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And as far as I know, there's no relation to the other Cosby that we know. So Mary is she's like I said, she's on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I mean, of Salt Lake City. But her backstory is wildly. It's just insane. It's just it's it's shocking. It's unbelievable, and for various reasons. Like I said, obvious reasons, but then for me, I spent 20 years in church myself of apostolic, which is, Pentecostal apostolic is like the same. I'm not about to say that I, sat under any type of leadership that was like this, but there are hints of and elements of it that I can relate to and that, I have seen, not necessarily in churches that I go to, but it's very, very closely I can relate to some of the aspects of how they like most charismatic churches is what they call it really hold their leadership in high esteem. So it's like that fine line, they some go over, and then it's like a cult. So, but anyway, so about her backstory. So she was estranged from her mom when she was a child. And like I'm just giving the highlights. It's worth watching, you guys. It's just three episodes. If you like that kind of content, or if you're, former, charismatic church, I was definitely a Bible thumper. I didn't get upset if people said I was a holy roller because I was, you know what I mean? And I was proud of it. But yeah, if you can relate to that type of faith walk, then it's definitely worth watching, and it's a cherry on the top if you watch though that franchise, The Housewives. So she was raised by her grandmother. Everybody called her grandmother Mama, and she was like a evangelist or preacher or what have you, and she had her own church. Now there will be more just about her story specifically in the upcoming episode, so I don't want to get too deep off into about Mary's grandma, but just for today, I want to, wanted to make sure that I pointed out that she was raised by her grandmother, and when she was 3 years old, her grandmother married a man who was 20 years younger than her when Mary was 3 years old. Now, y'all, when grandma passed on, Mary married her step, and I'm doing air quotes, she married her step grandpa, but the man watched her grow up from 3 years old. So Mary said that, and she is on camera saying this, that it was, basically her grandmother's dying wish, and that it was in her grandmother's will that whenever she passes away, that she wanted Mary to marry her step grandpa, which I mean to me, I, from 3 years old, that I mean, that's grandpa. Like that is really just, it's just not appropriate. It's not appropriate. It's very weird. It's very weird. And I'm trying to, censor myself, and not use certain words. But so that's what Mary said. She said that it was in her grandmother's will that they get married upon her passing, and then Mary would take over um, grandma's businesses and take over the church. And that's very relevant in the upcoming episodes, that she said that her grandmother wanted her to take over the church, okay, and that was in her will. So, mama had, excuse me, excuse me, y'all, I'm sorry. I know that's not professional, y'all, but my throat is just so dry. I don't know. It's like the heat in the apartment. It's making my throat so dry all the time. But anyway, so I'm not gonna. I don't want to give anything away. I'm just kind of setting the stage, right? So, um, like I said, it's a 3-part series, and this first episode, and if y'all hear my papers rattling, I had to make notes, y'all, because I wanted to make sure I touched on the points. But I'm just giving the highlights, and I just don't want to. I don't want to give anything away, but I did want to show the flow chart of these are people who are family or former congregation members, and these are people that are telling their story in the first, in all of them, so there's a few people here that already introduced their stories in this first episode, and you'll just, see more of them in the next two. And their stories are so compelling. They are just gripping. They are jaw dropping. I mean, like enough to make you, while you're sitting there, just just gape your mouth open a little bit, like what? Like you might even rewind a couple of things to make sure that you heard it right. This woman represents herself as God to her church. She says that the only way to heaven is through her, and they worship her. They love her. Here's some clips of this one clip. This What's happening here is a man is kneeling. Well, she's sitting there on the pulpit, and he's kneeling on the ground before her with his hands in the air, praising her. And then this this woman here was passionately reading a letter that she wrote. They give her accolades, in front of the congregation, and she just sits there and just takes it all in. But some of them are hysterical. One woman was just screaming, "I will never leave you. I love you. I will." I mean, if that's not cult like behavior, I just really don't know what is. Now, I've never seen anything like that in any church that I ever sat in. Let me say that I never, was a part of anything that extreme. But like I said, I could relate to elements of it, like it feels controlling, at least back in the day. I'm sure that um, it's not like that now in some churches. You when you know better, you do better. And if you are raised a particular way and you believe that that's the way the holiness and that's the way, to stay out of hell and all that, and you believe that because your great grandma, was married to a preacher, and then they had 10 kids, and half those kids were ministers, or you know what I mean. Like, it definitely is something that you don't question right away, because that's how you were raised, and it goes back generations, especially in Black culture. That is just to even think about questioning it is almost sin considered a sin, at least it was. And I don't think I think there are churches that are, more progressive today and that they realize, that a lot of that is toxic behavior. Um but yeah, I can definitely relate to the kind of so it's isolating in one sense, but then in another sense, it's not because you feel like you are so connected, so much a part of, a charismatic church that is your family. And so you are isolated from people who are not a part of that. And you spend the majority of your waking hours, you know, thinking of how to get everybody you love and even new people you meet to come to church to, hear the gospel, of Jesus and be saved, from eternal damnation. And so you believe that, and so while you're cut off, because you're not supposed to be like the world, you know, at the same time you're embraced by this community. There is community there, and so I can see how someone like her could manipulate people who maybe are broken, for whatever reason. She's not the first person to say that she's God, and have people follow her and believe it. But in this day and age, it's just really, exceptionally, shockingly unbelievable. And what's even more concerning is the fact that she's still on the show. Like, I don't want to give too much away because I'm going to review, the next two. Next week I'm going to do episode 2, and the week after I'm going to do episode 3 for Talk About It Tuesday. But after, after things got hot for her in the media, she was not on, like, she skipped the reunion for that season and was not on the next season. But then she came back, and what concerns me is, like, why is she on the show? Even though I don't watch it, it's just it's disturbing. Why are we platforming her? Why are we platforming someone who, says that they're God and, berates their congregation, saying that they didn't give her enough for her birthday, and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know. She married her grandpa. That was her grandpa. And wait until you guys, we get into about him, like what he was about or is about, I guess, because this documentary came out in 2024. Well, I guess it was recorded in 2024. I think that was on the clip that I added. But that's all I have for this episode. I've been wanting to, since I came back and, I'm recording again. I've had ideas in my mind that I wanted to do, and doing reviews is one of them. And so, if you made it this far, if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. I always used to say, come inside, feel the vibe, join the T tribe. So if you watched and you listened to Chi, I feel like you're a part of my tribe. So go ahead and subscribe. What do you got to lose? Go ahead and support me. So that's it for this episode. And yeah, I guess thank you so much for tuning in and chopping up with Chi. Until next time, peace.